There are three things that demonstrate the deity of Christ: his pre-existence with God, his coexistence with God, and his self-existence with God. He is pre-existent, coexistent, and self-existent. I don't want you to get tangled up in terms. Those are not complicated, and I'll hope to be able to make them easy for you to understand. Here's John's message. In the beginning was the Word. Simple statement. In the beginning. What beginning? The beginning of what? In the beginning of Genesis 1:1. That's the beginning. If you don't qualify the beginning, then it's the beginning. In the beginning, the same beginning that is Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In that beginning, the Word was. What is the importance of that? The Word was already existing. The Word was already existing. That is to say, the Word, who is none other than the Son of God, Jesus Christ, was already in existence when God created everything that exists. Now, if you're not a part of the creation, you're not a part of time and space. If you're not a part of time and space, then you're eternal. That's a very important statement. John affirms his pre-existence. He existed before the beginning of everything that exists. He was already existing. That's the imperfect tense of the to be verb, the verb eimi. The imperfect tense means continuously. He was continuously existing already when the beginning began. He didn't begin with the beginning. He's not a part of the creation. He's not a created being. He's an already existing being. Time began with creation. Time began on the first day when God created, and the second day and the third, and on time has marched until time will one day end and we will live in eternity without time. But since time began, with the starting of time was the starting of creation, this being, the Word, existed before time and therefore is outside of time and therefore is eternal. At the point that everything began, He already was, describing continuous existence before creation, the eternal pre-existence of the one called the Word. So very important and unmistakably clear.
John MacArthur is not teaching anything new. As a matter of fact, this is a typical teaching of all Trinitarians. When they look at John 1:1, they teach that this is a revelation of the pre-existent Christ. And common teaching among the Trinitarian apologists, for example, let me begin by saying that John MacArthur does not teach on the true meaning of the word logos. The word logos, according to Strong's Greek Concordance, means speech, utterance, reason, and so many others. But the word logos never means a divine person. You can search from Genesis to Revelation, and that will never be the case. Always, the logos is really the most common word for word. It is used about 200 times in the Bible. Like most Trinitarians, MacArthur will not tell you on the history of the origin of the Logos Christology. MacArthur will not tell you that from many, many years ago, the earliest apologists, the Greek apologists, or the ones known as the Apostolic or Ante-Nicene Fathers, that they developed this teaching of the Logos as being a pre-existent from none other than Philo of Alexandria. This is history, and there is ample proof that the Trinity doctrine gets its pre-existent Christ from philosophy and from the old teachings of pagan Greek Logos, and not the Logos of John 1:1. The Apostle John was not a philosopher, and contrary to what Trinitarians teach in their books, John did not get the idea of the Logos from Philo of Alexandria or from any philosopher whatsoever. No, the Apostle John, like the rest of the apostles, were spiritual men that followed the teachings of Jesus Christ. And they were Jews, and they stood by the Old Testament, and of course they wrote the New. But they went with the membra of the Old Testament being the Word of God that God would send to do things. And there is no way that the membra was a divine person. This is a teaching of philosophy. The pagan Greek Logos taught that there in God's mind, from God's mind came the Logos who created all things and did all things material, because God was a transcendent God who could not touch the material things. This the apostolic fathers took and they developed it, applying it to the scriptures and applying it to the gospel. And later on, Irenaeus took the same teaching to the Western world. And from there, it developed even more until it came to the Council of Nicaea. At the Council of Nicaea, it was accepted and it was proclaimed as the teaching of the state religion. Now, is it true that the Word is eternal? Is it true that the Word was with God? Is it true that the Word existed, with God at the beginning or even in eternity? The answer is yes. But the difference between the Greek pagan Logos and the Word or Logos of John the Apostle is that John was talking about Genesis 1:1, when God spoke and created all things by his spoken word. So John 1:1 is talking about the Logos or spoken creative word that has always been with God from the beginning. Modern apologists, modern Trinitarians have pulled a fast one on their people, because they don't tell their people about the history of the pagan Greek Logos, and they don't tell the people about Philo of Alexandria. They don't tell the people about the early Greek apologists who took the teachings of Philo and brought them into the church. No, the Trinitarians of today will try to tell you that it's only in the Bible where they get the teaching of the Trinity. And this is a lie, because to teach that John 1:1 is talking about a second divine person would go completely against the New Testament and the Old Testament. Listeners, today I pray that you will consider this teaching and search it out for yourself. There are a lot of sources to prove the points that I'm making this day.